Gentlemen and ladies, the few amongst you who are subscribed to the channel, I gotta say something. I am very disappointed in Ross from Cursed Farm for his take on the pirate software situation.
Here has been the #1 voice on the campaign, and he's been lying about what it is. That's a bit loaded, though. In this case, I'm using the second definition of lie. I have no evidence it's the first.
You kind-hearted gaming wizard, you don't need to hold back punches because what Thor did was despicable. Hi everyone, your favorite physicist with a 70s copper mustache is back to talk about all that sugary spice and everything that sucks ass. I really don't like to talk about these type of things. I don't. I much prefer laughing and just covering something kind of silly and having a good time, but on occasion I will relent and cover subjects that can be considered as drama, especially when it revolves around individuals who display exceedingly awful behaviors with real-life consequences. This one is on the Stop Killing Games initiative, much like the Avengers one, but we can all be the heroes. Yay! I've covered this one on the channel last year, and I did so especially because I'm European and the petition could actually help us enact substantial changes if done correctly. Now, I might be moving a little bit too fast here, so let's back up a little bit. For those who have not been bothered to follow along with what goes on in the gaming industry, because after all, we are being treated as consumers, so we do what consumers do, well, the industry is cooked. I've had a look at the stats last month and made a video about it, and oh boy, the future's looking rather bleak for players and developers alike. It's not just the expenses of games, how costly they become, the lack of polish, or the layoffs that is affecting the devs. One big problem that is affecting the industry as well is one that Philippe Tremblay of Ubisoft, his director of subscription, was so very keen to stress out last year, as he told gamers to, I quote, feel comfortable not owning your games. A phenomenon that we have seen growing for years now as physical ownership becomes a bit more scarce. Games are already being delisted from platforms. I can't get my hands on Lost Planet 2 on Steam. Yes, the game is said to be bad, but it's my type of game, okay? Thank you if you dislike it. But also sticking with Ubisoft a little bit here because they are a focal point in this petition, now there's outright the removal of games from our libraries despite us actually having bought them. So with that clarification, Ross from Cursed Farm made a petition aimed at targeting the legality of publishers destroying video games that already are sold to customers. It was pretty simple and clear-cut actually.
As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers.
Now, given that this is the kind of things that can actually take off pretty well out here in Europe, because we might be dealing with 27 or so different countries and their regulation on trade, but when it comes to dealing with a specific subject, you can bet your ass that we get even the big giants like Apple to use that USB-C or leave Microsoft altogether to use LibreOffice. Yes, Europe can be based sometimes. Least to say that this was something that I was fully behind. I signed it. And what I did, however, in its coverage was to actually hear out the point of Thor from PirateSoftware.
What?
As he, being a dev and someone who, please listen to me very carefully here, once had a track record of genuine good gaming takes. Okay, don't shoot the messenger, this was what he was known for. I wanted to hear his perspective, and well, you couldn't help but notice the biases behind every single statement that he made and the thing that he stuck up to. What Thor has been saying so far, he's still focusing on the architecture part of the live services as a service and not a product. That's what we want to change.
How many of you have felt negatively when an MMO dies or when a live service game dies? Oh, dead game. There's only 5 people online. Why would I play that? So why would you want to preserve a game in that state? That doesn't make any sense to me. You want to take down these live service games, put them up on a private server, and then play it with a couple of people. You're not...
No, that's a That's a terrible take, mate. And as the comment section on my coverage of that video will tell you, people did not take kindly to it, and especially his dismissal of just about most of the points that were being made in it. So now, 2 videos, a live stream, and nearly 11 months later, the movement feels slightly stagnant. Ross did make an update recently that showed that we got to the 500,000 or so signatures, so we could say that it's going strong. It's but Europe who has to do this, but obviously we want more. We could have gotten there faster and have got a lot more if it wasn't for the fact that it was basically stifled due in big parts to Thor's statement, and especially because he kept misrepresenting the overall point of this entire thing.
And that's why I think this needs to not be vague. It needs to be specific about the business practice it's trying to defeat, which is specifically companies that are doing this under the guise of it being a single-player game, but adding online-only functionality that is not necessary and doesn't add any gameplay elements.
In my coverage of this thing, I went in further details. I wanted to talk about like the EULA, yeah, the user term services and all that, but we don't even need to go that far. The explanation was rather simple, and I'll let the man himself tell you what this petition was about.
As a refresher, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers.
There. Quite simple. And what did Thor say about this?
Thor does not understand what Stop Killing Games is. Here it is in his words.
So for those who don't understand, the Stop Killing Games initiatives is basically, we don't want single-player games to have DRM that the developers can turn off and thus render the single-player games inactive anymore. This is what they want to change. They need to be specific that they're talking about single-player games that do not need a server to support them.
No.
And as much as they want it to be about specifically games where it is a single-player game that has always online functionality, it would impact every live service game that exists, instead of just targeting single-player, always online games.
No, that's not what it is. Stop Killing Games includes single-player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. This is what I mean. It's harder for gamers to understand this because they come with so many assumptions. It's the first line on the website. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. But the movement includes all this stuff from earlier, and he was mostly talking about the initiative. Well, the short version is the initiative is about requiring publishers to have end-of-life plans for games they've sold to customers in the future. So when they shut them down, customers can continue running them without their support. The long version depends on what kind of transaction is being made. As you can see, it's not easy to explain in a soundbite. But if you notice, we don't make a distinction between single-player and multiplayer games. That's because the law doesn't either.
He could not even get past the first line. And this goes on for months. For months, he kept this up. His discussion of this subject has not been, let's say, just plainly disagreements.
Good, now this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. It's shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. Now, eat my entire ass. The level of stupid that I just had to receive was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid-ass move. That's an incredibly stupid-ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit, then. I drop the mask entirely. I have no qualms about that. They can eat my entire ass. The whole thing.
Now, I will say this, playing slightly a bit of the devil's advocate here. There is no problem whatsoever to have certain dislikes about this. You can disagree about certain specifics in this document. That is fine. And nobody is asking Thor to champion this at all. But the condescension and the higher-than-thou attitude that you bring along with you when you're acting as if you were even discussing this thing in fairness to begin with is absolutely fucking disgusting. And I'm also kind of like making this video because I feel kind of bad that I didn't push back enough. when this first thing released. Maybe because I wasn't terminally online enough to be able to watch his stream discussing this. What sucks about this the most is one, this entire attitude of dismissal that he has against this, and two, which might just be even worse, is that all type of good faith that you might have had towards Thor's actual disagreement with this just goes straight out of the window when you realize that he was feigning ignorance about this entire time. For did you know that on April 7th, by the way, my coverage of that one video of his that he posted was put out in August. Yes, he uploaded that one in August of 2024. He already was aware about this when he was asked on stream.
Check out Accursed Farms on YouTube or his website Stop Killing Games.
So I'd be really interested in looking into this. The thing that I'm worried about at the outset is wanting to put any type of legal framework together to force studios to have a contingency plan for games that are live service games. So I want to go research it first, because everyone's been talking about this. Because I don't want, and this is the real one, I don't want the government telling indies that they have to have their live service game stay online forever. I don't want that. Nobody wants that. But when you're talking about a legal setting to force people to do this, you're generally moving in that direction. You get a whole lot of these problems where there's like smaller games, and everybody's focusing on the big juggernauts. They're like, what happens when World of Warcraft goes away? I want to play World of Warcraft. But you're not thinking about how this could impact everybody in the space. Just the big titans. Everybody wants to stick it to the man, and they forget that, well, the man is not the only man on the board.
In other words, he knew. He had formed an opinion about it. He feared that this would have some repercussion, especially for live service games. And despite him stating, as he tends to use the word verbatim here, that he was going to be doing his research on the entire thing, he focused solely on those live service games and did not discuss a single ounce of everything else that the initiative had to deal with. I know that I've been calling it a petition. I am sorry. That's the words that kind of stuck in my head. You understand, Thor, that this is very weird. So from the onset, you have formed yourself an opinion. You wanted to oppose this, and you had to disguise this entire thing as a form of a dev just trying to stick for the little man, the little person sitting on the board, the small indie developer who might be affected once in the future if his live service game is made obsolete because some people are forcing him to convert it into a single-player experience.
But he also seems to think this is about converting multiplayer games to single player. Once again, he made that up, and I have no idea why he thought that.
Transitioning an entire multiplayer server-side game into a single-player video game, which means rebalancing the entire experience around single-player, rebuilding everything in the entire game. How are you going to do that with Final Fantasy XIV? You're just going to make all the raids soloable? Imagine the day that World of Warcraft shuts down, and suddenly you have to make it a single-player game for every individual that ever bought the game. That's what they're asking for.
No.
You want to take down these live service games, put them up on a private server, and then play it with a couple of people. You're not...
No, that's a terrible take, mate. I brought the example with WoW before. It's literally reverting a game to a state that is what most players, a lot of players, let's not say most, okay? What a lot of players wanted. The document that Accursed Farm and the petition here is asking literally states that it doesn't require the dev to give up anything that is proprietary. Like code that they do not want to share is fine not to share, because it can be a touchy subject, asking for devs to give infrastructure to have something moved over to a private server. But plenty of games have done that in the past. Warhammer Online is doing that. God forbid, Wildstar, EverQuest, Ultima, those are running on private servers. So you can if you want to. That is to say, of course, if the company isn't being adversarial with that. An example, for the World of Warcraft players, private servers were not doing great. The whole season desist situation that Blizzard had with Nefarious and all of those. So there can be legal issues about that. I do understand the frustration that devs can have about this, but also you need to keep in mind consumers who are likely to want to keep on making investment on a product that is good, also want to have a level of security to know that they're getting their money's worth. It's not hard to understand.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games.
Yeah, so why does he keep bringing it up? This is a total red herring.
If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
No, he's getting a new thing wrong now. We're not against them existing. We're against them being destroyed with no recourse for the customer. Just use logic.
Like, I'm sitting here trying to figure out what could have prompted something like this. I know that this is a little bit of a tangent here. He had an entire discussion with Dr. K at some point that kind of alluded to, if I'm remembering this correctly, to the fact that he had somewhat excessively narcissistic behavior, like tendencies at least would be the right word to use here, because he was kind of being dismissive of Dr. K's saying.
And then my guess is that you were kind of an ass with the way that you responded to it, because you're really good at being an ass.
I think sometimes the things that I talk about in regards to those types of things is misconstrued as arrogance or boasting, when in reality, I'm just trying to give context.
So that is the problem right there. So I want you to listen to this phrase.
Sure.
This gets misconstrued as arrogance, but in reality, it's this.
Yeah.
That is the most arrogant statement on the planet, bro. Like, tell me I'm wrong.
Okay. I don't see it that way, but all right.
Right? So, you don't see it that way. You're wrong.
No.
Dr. K spitting facts at Pirate Software.
I wouldn't even be bringing this up if it wasn't for the fact that Ross had to make an update video about how this initiative, which had good intention, did not even get across, or at least had its momentum hampered, especially due to your statements. Because in the update video that Ross made, he brought up individuals like Moist Critical that he would have wished that the likes of them would actually pick up this story and bring it to the forefront so that it will get more attention. More eyes will mean more signatures. And despite him thinking that nothing would happen, something actually happened. And naturally, it wasn't just the signatures that was going forward, it was also Thor's behavior that came to the forefront as well, which has gotten him a lot of backlash if he didn't have enough to deal with the entire WoW situation that is still kind of fresh in some people's minds. And so Charlie apparently had a conversation with Thor, wherein then he responded with a very lengthy tweet that, boy, rings in ways. And listen, I'm going to assume that Charles went into this with, like, the best intentions possible, even expecting him to have done all of this accidentally, right? With good faith. That's usually what he does, even when he had discussions with the likes of fucking Sneeko. People tend to call him the less radical Jesus with milquetoast approach to things. I don't see him randomly cursing a fig tree for no reason. He apparently had a discussion with Thor, PirateSoftware, and the tweet, I'm gonna read it to you and put in some classic music in the background, and you just tell me about the irony of it all. And it reads as follows. Just talk to Charlie and Josh Strife Hayes, oh my god, of course. He even talked to MMO Jesus for a bit in DMs. If you're mad at me for being a dick to Ross, I get it. And I'm sorry for that. I should not have lashed out, but I had an emotional response due to how important this subject is to me. On the developer side, I have been in constant battle with people online for nearly a decade trying to inform them how difficult it is to make and release video games. The idea that any of these technical hurdles are easy to overcome and would be simple to implement is the exact kind of things I've been fighting. When I bring up the issue with leaving online-only games in a functional playable state after sunsetting, I'm always met with responses diminishing the efforts needed to do that. This is not a simple hurdle to overcome, and it's exactly why I don't like this initiative. You can't leave the challenges up to a figure-it-out mentality, and you can't diminish the work of those on the dev side just because you want your way. Movements like these showcase to me how little the general public understand about game development, modern gaming architecture, and online game as a whole. That's why I put videos out poking holes in this, because it sets an entire conversation back to the Stone Age in terms of developer and player understanding. Making shit is hard. Making shit when people think it's easy is harder. If you want all games to be left in a functional, playable state, then you need to listen to people when they talk about how infeasible that will be in a lot of situations. Since this is the initiative's primary goal, as listed on the ECI page, it's kind of important to resolve that. Now, now that you've listened to all of that, there are more tweets, of course, about this because people have been dogpiling on this entire response. And the thing about this is that he keeps sticking to his guns, which is fine, okay? The deal, however, is that he can't be serious when he keeps on saying that people are trying to either take him out of context or just clip farming simply to make it sound wrong. Yes, he's arguing for a big part, at least of this, the language that was used here. And that was actually a point that I somewhat kind of agreed with him, that if we need to enact a law about this, we need to be kind of specific about it. Because yes, if we're dealing with especially EU laws with a studio like, let's say, Ubisoft, again, they have been on the forefront of this entire thing, who have lawyers who can dispute anything that a non-profit, who are usually going to be the ones who are going to be tackling things like this before actual lawyers get involved, we're simply going to lose. So, specific language needs to be used. Fair, if that is what he actually wants to very much stick to, certainly. But the approach, again, to how he has been responding to this has been incredibly dumb. The lashing out that he himself points out has been very, very bad, and especially again when he has been urged to perhaps provide a better way of discussing this, which he has outright refused. He did not want to talk with Ross under the pretense that his fan base has been assaulting, I know, wrong word used here. There, Thor, take your 1 point, but that Ross's rabid fanbase has been coming to his streams and harassing him and stuff. I think that where we find ourselves right now is that Ross sat down, went through each and every single point and disagreements that you may have had with it, pointed them out in his latest video. And that is what people are taking offense to right now, Thor. It is this fixation on the hypothetical. It is this fixation of the hypothetical technical hurdles of the online live service games that is kind of frustrating to people, and you not acknowledging that there are just plain and simple single player experiences that we need to deal with. Even the content example that he made use of, which was on The Crew. The fuck? Which had single player component, is something that has been removed. So how do you want to argue with that? Why did you not even bring that up during that initial video? And then again, when you refuse to acknowledge that you may have misrepresented this entire thing, and just goes on to say that, oh, people just don't get it. You don't understand how bad game development... We get it, okay? We fear for devs every single time, from the good to even the bad. I even care about the bad game developers out there who put out actually bad product. Because, hey, I still want the games to be around, not because I want to clown on them, because they have potential and perhaps somebody can take their ideas and improve upon it. And please, for the love of Holy Terra, you cannot get on a stream. I know this might perhaps support his point of people actually now picking out clips. You cannot get on the stream and say that you spread misinformation, and because it wasn't refuted, it's not your fault.
I think it's really hilarious to me that that entire community is so butt mad at me for putting out a video 10 months ago about their stuff, and then not being refuted, and now it's my fault that everything is going wrong for them.
Dude, do better. Anyways, this has been my take on this entire thing. It sounds kind of a bit futile to have this discussion anymore. He is never gonna relent to the fact that he may have caused some issues to it, but yeah, that's PirateSoftware for you. Again, I'm not saying this because I want to hate the guy. I actually kind of want to appreciate the stuff that he does. Yeah, I know I might be completely alone and sad in this bench like Keanu Reeves, just, you know, feeding the pigeons with my bad take on this. But I'm not making this video to be mean, okay? It's just stupid. It's a stupid way to act. Anyways, this has been my take. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, if you are European and you have the chance and this video actually got to you, this is also one of the reasons why I'm making this video. Sign that petition. It is a start for something that could be very good, okay? Do it.